President Trump needs to look at his chief counsel at the ATF because he actually just worked against President Trump in favoring gun control. And fortunately, the Trump administration and DOJ officials were able to look past this. But when you have somebody this high up at the ATF that is pushing for gun control under the disguise of being a pro-gun advocate, we're going to have serious problems here. Not only is this guy, this guy is high up enough where he can actually dictate some of the rule processes, and he actually has a lot of influence. Now I want to talk about who he is, how he's disguised himself as a pro-gun advocate, and how all of us face this. Every election cycle, you could probably name a representative or two right now that you know does this exact same thing. I'm pro-gun, but anytime you hear that but, that's where we have problems. And I think the biggest question that you have to ask yourself, or we really need to be asking representatives, is what is the Second Amendment? What is it for? Because when you answer that question, that will tell you what kind of pro-2A advocate they really are. We just saw this in the House and Ways Committee with suppressors. Now we're seeing it at the ATF. It probably makes another strong case that the ATF just needs to be disbanded all the way around. Of course, I want to hear your opinion, though. Let me know what you think down below. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So Robert Leiter, this is actually a guy, whenever you do research on him, you see that he went through the Antonin Scalia Law School. He is considered a pro-2A advocate. But then I just read an article where he actually agreed that FRTs do need to be regulated and banned. So when he came on at the ATF in March, some people that were kind of briefing him at the ATF said, hey, we have a decision that's going to have to be made. We want to fill you in, FRTs. So they actually took him to a range and showed him how these devices work. Now I can't show them here in a YouTube video, of course, because of their rules, not mine, but essentially think of it like a device that helps you in firing a firearm. It's going to be a little bit quicker, but it changes nothing about the actual gun. You pull the trigger, bang, a shot happens, the bolt cycles, the gun does its thing, and then it has a spring which pushes your finger forward to reset, so you can shoot a little bit quicker. But Robert Leiter saw these in person and he said, you know what? Yeah, we should be treating these things like full autos. Now, some of you may stop right there and you say, hey, this device is not protected under the Second Amendment. It only talks about guns. Well, if it's not protected under the Second Amendment, why would they treat it like a firearm that is regulated like full autos are? Meaning if it's not crucial to the function of a firearm and it's not a part of the Second Amendment, nor does the 2A actually protect this item, why would there be any regulation on it? Why would there be more regulation on an accessory than an actual firearm? Or equal to when you're talking full autos, suppressors, as of right now, things like that. Because again, I go back to that question, what is the 2A? Why do we have it? If you answer that question with anything other than the right of the citizens to be able to protect themselves against a potential tyrannical government, then we're speaking different languages. Terms aren't really defined then. Now you have to wonder, where are they coming from? What do they actually believe the 2A is for? And with Robert Leiter, he's actually kind of made that perfectly clear. He believes that it's for self-defense, which is encompassing of the 2A, but not the sole reason that the founders originally wrote it. And while he does admit from a historical context that the militia part of the 2A does serve as a collective defense of our community, of our state, and of our country, he also openly says that we've always balanced people's gun rights with societal changes and balance those with public safety. So again, we're talking two different things. If you take into account public safety, this is something that Democrats do a lot, right? They will say, oh, in the name of safety, we need to ban this gun. Your rights, if everybody thought like that, your rights would be eroded instantly. We would probably never even be having this conversation if that's the way they look at them. Essentially, with the 2A, there is an unfortunate aspect to it, but the price of freedom never comes free, and there is a unfortunate cost to that. If the founders had intentionally wrote the 2A and said, hey, you know, we need to balance public safety and give people a right to bear arms to some extent. They could have easily said, hey, look, muskets of a certain caliber, we can't allow those. Ferguson repeaters, Cookson repeaters, these were able to fire 7 to 10 shots per minute, much faster, like quadruple that of a musket. They could have looked at that and said, guns like this are too much, they're too dangerous. They could have said, hey, private ownership of cannons even, 3-pounders and 6-pounders, this means that the people could actually revolt against us. As technology grew, volley guns, pepperbox revolvers, Winchesters, lever actions, all of these guns, they could have made an amendment and said, look, it's becoming clear that the people have rights to the same guns and even better ones than we do. But they didn't do that because they understood that no matter what the gun is, no matter how fast it fires, no matter what it looks like or the design, the point is to be of equal match with the government in case they become tyrannical. This isn't like a new discussion. They could have started this in the 1800s, the 1900s, and that's when you started to see some form of gun control, which every single time does nothing but affects regular citizens. So when you put an FRT behind a paywall, then you make people register it and they have to go on a spree where they give the government all of their information and fingerprints and everything else that encompasses, you're putting one more device that could potentially be used to save their life or just to have it. You don't even have to have a really good reason to actually have it. But again, I ask the question, if it's not a firearm and it's simply an accessory, why do you put it behind all these paywalls, essentially, and the permission that you're telling people they have to have in order to get this device? There's a reason for it, and I believe the reason is actually more nefarious than some people like to believe. So Robert Leiter has already told us kind of what he believes that 2A is for, and that there are necessary restrictions that he believes need to be put in place. This is working in complete opposition to what we're trying to accomplish in this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but we're also trying to get devices where FRTs and pistol braces and other simple accessories, we're not going to threaten to shut these companies down just because people like Robert Leiter or others view them as too dangerous for the common man to own. This guy can interpret statutes, draft and review regulations. He can add new rules. He can give suggestions for new rules. And essentially what you're going to have is a so-called Pro 2A person that may not look as bad as somebody like a Dettelbach or even like a kind of chameleon like Marvin Richardson and others. You essentially got a guy that under the disguise of being Pro 2A is willing to write the same damn legislation that the previous administration did as well. And it's interesting because I seen where Robert Leiter said something about the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act and how he thought it might go against the constitutional rights of Americans, when I think it clearly goes against the rights and our gun rights especially. This is not the guy you want. I think Trump should absolutely fire this guy immediately. There is no room for people that are lukewarm on the Second Amendment. Not at this point. Not really ever, but especially not at this point. When we have the opportunity to do so much, all it takes is one kink in the chain to basically never be able to restore the rights that we are looking for right now. That's just my opinion though. Of course, I'd love to hear yours. Let me know what you think down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.